Welcome to the Nightbird Radio Podcast. I'm Timothy Saylor, and I'm going to be your host this evening as we sound out the subconscious, navigate the nocturnal, and explore the farthest reaches of our experience. Coming at you from the back of an 86 Dodge Ram van on the rolling foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in the Great Forest, deep in the heart of the Kali Yuga. This is radio for the hauntological turn. And welcome back, Nightbirds. It's great to have you back, and it's great to be back. I've got a great episode for you this evening. I had the pleasure of speaking with Marissa Gamberutti. Marissa is one of my favorite people to talk to. She's an angel magician, she reads tarot and practices geomancy, and she's not only in training to be a somatic sex educator, but she's also in training to be a badass ancestor. We talked about angels and angelic communication, death and overcoming the fear of it, and our bodies as reservoirs of ancestral knowledge. We talked about the nature of the Archons, how to resist them without becoming one, and using gratitude and reality shifting to become free of the black iron prison, and so much more. Marissa also shared with me about the fortuitous events that led to her starting her Twitch stream at Planet Destroyer 54, where you can find her practicing divination for the people of the internet. I had a great time talking with Marissa, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So without further ado, let's fly. Marissa Gamberutti, welcome to the Nightbird Radio Podcast. How are you doing?
Excellent. I'm doing excellent. I just realized that it's called Nightbird, and birds are everywhere.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with those angels.
Yes, definitely.
And I've had a lot of them, just bird syncs recently too, anyway.
Yeah, I've been getting a bunch of turkeys in my front yard. I've had like a bunch of turkey feathers just show up in my front yard. I didn't realize that feathers were a thing until I was hanging out with Tim, and he's like, I get feathers. I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, now I get feathers all the time on the ground, just out of nowhere.
That's interesting. See, I was getting a lot of them. Okay, I think I ignored the angels for a long time, right? Or like intentionally avoided. I don't think you can like, you know what I mean, any more than you can avoid like the air around you or whatever, you know.
Yeah
They seem to be, and I think they were talking about this on Reverend Jenglebone's podcast, like some sort of structure of part of the structure of reality. What's your
they're the
experience there?
bee of the universe. That's how, when they explained it to me, they're like, we are ings that bee.
Oh yeah, you told me that. That
they
blows
like broke
my mind.
down. They broke down the word being and put like a little dash in between it and switched it around.
That's the kind of stuff that they say where I'm like, yeah, that's not me. I'm not that smart. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I wonder too, do you think that talking to angels makes you like more psychic? That's a loaded question, but
yeah.
What's your experience there?
My experience there is that there was a lot of practice in listening to the different voices that come through. And so kind of being able to tune into like the angel voice that runs through, I think contributes to being psychic just because like they know what's going on, but it's the choice in listening to them that leads to the being psychic. Because there are times where I will hear something, ignore it, and then it happens the way that they said it was going to happen, and I get this little like, see, we were right. And so trying to make it like a moment of celebration, like if you had listened, you would have been right. Isn't that wonderful? But you didn't, so you're here, but that's okay too.
Yeah, so That's a good point. I think, yeah, like the practice of following that intuition, maybe,
Hmm. Yeah,
because
yeah. Big,
go ahead, go ahead.
well, a big part of my practice with them is they keep emphasizing that in order for any of it to work, quote unquote, there has to be an allowing. And they're like, you're the only thing that's getting in your way. Like, you can have everything that you have ever wanted. All you have to do is allow yourself to have it.
That's the hardest part, though.
It's the hardest part.
Yeah, because I think what I've been kind of thinking about, and like I have suspected the influence of angels in this thought process, not only because it's like they're jamming it in my like bashing me over the head with it, for lack of a better like way of putting it, like
Mhm.
maybe they're flapping it into my head, but like of yeah, like I think that we like I can speak for myself at least and say that I think I've magicked myself with these thoughts over a long period of time. And it's not my fault. It's just whatever conditioning, a
Mhm.
lot of different trauma and whatever.
Mhm.
Um, have magicked myself into a box, and it's simply the act of like stepping out of it. But
Mhm. Yep.
and they'll say things like, "You have everything that you need right now. Like you won't ever need anything. You have it all right now. You have every gift
Mhm.
from like." And but they also stress the idea that yeah, like you said, like there has to be like you have to ask for it too, like you have to
Mhm. Yeah.
call it into your life. And I
Yeah.
think that like that's about freedom, right?
Mhm. I also think that the question is the allowing it into your
Mm.
life. Like when you ask, that is the allow.
Oh wow, yeah, that gave me goosebumps. Yeah, so just the act of asking for it just makes it, because
Hmm.
wow.
Yeah, I get the image of them like standing at a doorway and they're like, just ask the question. If you ask the question, we can come in. All you have to do is ask, and we'll do everything else. Just
Yeah,
ask the
so
question.
that makes sense as to why like calling them is so, because I won't go into like the we both are, have used the same tech or the same uh, ritual, and it's
Hmm.
well, I'll say it's from Gordon White's um, Rune Suit Premium membership. If anyone is interested, check it out there. I can't really share it because it's not mine to share, but it seems to be that it's really easy to call them in, like,
Yeah.
and then once I call them in, like there's certain beings that I've tried to speak to where it was like, okay, like where are you at? Are you here? Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, this is definitely like beep 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 on the other end of the you know what I mean, like busy or some shit.
Yep.
But for them, that's not my experience at all. A lot of the time they will start talking before I've even asked the question.
Yep. Yeah. The emphasis that they place that emphasis on me because I started getting really in my head during the walk about like asking too much or bothering them. And they're like, you literally cannot bother us. And when you call to angels, like the when you place the angels around you and say, about me, all angels, it's not a calling in of angels from another place for them to come to you. It's a recognition that they're already always there.
Yeah, taking your place in what already
Mm-hmm.
is. And
So it's not for them, it's for you.
yeah.
You have to realize that they're already there.
And then in doing that, like the more that's done, the more it's cool. It's like it's like
Mm-hmm.
a feedback loop.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Have you, okay, let me ask you this. In the experience of getting to know these beings, do you think that this is your first like intro to them? Or do you feel like go ahead. I'm not going to try to lead you too much with that. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I since they time is not experienced the same way for them as it is for us. So throughout the walk, there were different points where I was kind of shown different parts of my life that I am not remembering the specifics of, where they were kind of like, we were here, and then we were here, then we were here. We were here that one time you did a bunch of acid. We were here, we were here.
Yeah.
And I got something from them where they said that my grandmothers spoke to angels, which, like, what do grandmothers look like to angels, and like what do they try to communicate? I'm like, okay, like legitimately, like up one of my lines, which I mean makes sense. There's so many angel magicians in the history of humans. Like, we're not the first humans to talk to angels. I'm like, are you talking about the women who talk to the watchers? Like, what does grandmother mean in this instance? But I'm like, okay, cool. But I don't think it's the first time that I have spoken to angels, because I think it's a thing that humans always do that we just have to remember.
Yeah, it's one of those it's like the human starter pack.
Mm-hmm.
It's like angels, ancestors, or veneration of the dead goes hand in hand. And
Yeah.
like house stuff, like protection.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's a lot of things I think that we do, and I think that even trying to make that starter pack is just a funny kind of like exercise because
Yeah.
oh shit, there's a lot that's been stolen from
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Like, I would throw bodies in there, just like knowing how to be in a body
Oh
is something
yeah.
that we've forgotten how to do.
Yeah, I don't know if this made it into the episode with Beverly, but I'll share it now. When I first started doing like Reiki and I was doing body scanning stuff and like body gratitude practice, like
Mm-hmm.
the first couple, I mean, it might have been the first like 3 or 4 times, but the first couple times that I did it, just like doing that and well, just like not opening a connection because that's always there, but like, you know what I mean? It's hard to put into words, but just allowing that space for that like gratitude and recognition of like what my body does for me. Like I just hadn't ever done it before. So I just started
Mm-hmm.
immediately crying. It was just like an hour of just like and good tears, right? Like but just
Mm-hmm.
like bawling basically. Um yeah, really powerful, but really like I think cuz so much builds up. I don't know. Like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we hold a ton of grief in our bodies, not just from our lifetimes, but from our ancestors' lifetimes, because we're not the first generation of people to be so estranged from our bodies.
right. And to be estranged like yeah, and so being estranged from our bodies is also being estranged from our ancestors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they are our body.
Right, like they gave it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, the somatic sex education stuff that I got into, that was my first kind of exposure to that kind of body gratitude relationship, and it's specifically focused around like the pleasure of the body and having the body be a center, not only for like being embodied and like you do your work with your body, but like you play with your body and you like pleasure with your body. And that's such a big part of being a human being. Like, when Gordon is talking about how humans are the earring of the universe, like we're the beauty and the pleasure and the joy. And if we weren't, then it wouldn't be so, like, it wouldn't feel so right when we were in a state of ecstasy or pleasure. And we've been mind fucked into thinking that it's not supposed to feel that good to be alive, but it is supposed to feel that good to be alive, and that's why it feels so right when we're in that state. Or that's how I've experienced it. It feels real right when I'm in that state.
yeah, that mind fuck of like of the nastiness of existence or like the nastiness of being a living being,
Mm-hmm.
like is super archonic.
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah,
think that's
definitely.
like one of the cornerstones of the archonic, um, the archonic aesthetic. Like, ew, that's gross,
Yeah,
man. Like,
yeah.
and yeah, I definitely like fell into that too. I feel
hmm
like.
Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to. That was actually a big part of my that was part of my angel walk, is that the angels and the BVM kind of colluded together and introduced me to Babylon, and she was big in like that sinking into the like lust of the filth of being a human being and just like loving the disgustingness of being in a body. And it was just like real weird meditations came out of that, but they were really good for me.
Oh, that's cool. I'd like to hear more about the angels conspiring with the BVM to introduce you to Babylon.
Well, they eventually started to refer to themselves as pieces of the mother. They're like, we are also her children. And like we have Mary, Queen of Angels, and Mary, Queen of Heaven. And when I read the Red Goddess, Peter Gray also refers to Babylon as the Queen of Angels. And there's this whole thing about how when Dee and Kelly were doing their angelic workings, it led to Babylon. So the Shem started being like, we lead to the mother. I'm like, oh shit, okay, where are you guys taking me? But as she started showing up, and she started showing up with the BVM as well, and there was kind of this communication that was happening between them where Mary very much wanted to be recognized as in relationship with Babylon. She's like, we are together. We are not like jealous or separate from each other. Like we are all part of the mother, and the angels are her children as well. And like just big mom vibes came out of the walk.
Very cool. That always makes me go Gnostic too.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, yeah, these are all currents that have been like washed out of like mainstream Christianity. And so I wanted you to speak a little bit on um we had talked about you kind of engaging with the angels and kind of removing it as much as you could from a Christian context. Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was something that I was led by them to do as well. That was something that that was one of the entries that I was just looking at last night from the walk. I asked them what they thought of Christianity, and they said that it is one way to know them. It's like a language. They're like, it's one of the most common ways that people have known us, but it's not the only way to know us. And so I like I really liked the prayers that were part of the ritual, but they started having me, they're like, don't say the prayers, don't say this. And they were just taking pieces away from the ritual. I think is it was also an emphasis on just how close they were. Like I didn't have to like go searching for them. They were just here. And so they had me remove all of the Christian before stuff, all of the prayers, and just call them in by tracing out the seal and their name, and then just start writing. And sometimes they would still have imagery come in, like the Lord and the Lady, but then they'd also talk about grandmother and grandfather. Sometimes little like snippets of other prayers would come in, but I think the emphasis is that it's like you don't have to know them as like cherubs,
Right.
and because they can show up like that, but they're like what the universe is constructed out of. So they're like, we're way weirder than you think that we are. And I got really excited about that too. Like I could feel in my body when they said that they were really weird and started like showing me their like shapes and how they could move through me with different feelings and like colors and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, this is cool. Let's keep doing this.
Yeah, they are really weird. They're absurd at times. That's why I like that help me out with the name of that album.
Oh, the Laura Auerbach. I think that's
Yeah, I
who.
just wanted to give credit.
That's the.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Laura Auerbach and the 70, is it called 72 Angels?
It's called 72 Angels, yeah, with the Netherlands Chamber Choir.
It's really good. And I enjoy the absurdity of it at times, like,
Mhm.
and I don't know if that's the correct term for musically, like what I'm trying to describe, but that's just how I understand that. It's like there's an otherworldly, like almost a Lynchian vibe to it sometimes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get that from them. And those moments are when I really know that like I'm getting the main line. And not that I'm, not that it's difficult to, but when I'm like, okay, yeah, this is definitely like I'm seeing something um that's much bigger than I can imagine.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they say pretty blasphemous stuff sometimes. Like things
Mhm.
like, you are what we cry holy, holy, holy about. Like, you know,
Mhm.
which yeah, that makes sense to me. That tracks. Like you were saying, the ear the well, there that even sorry, I'm like having a conversation with myself at this moment, trying to say what I'm trying
Oh,
to
I love it.
say. Okay, so you have the story of the Christian story of God creating um the humans and then asking the angels or commanding the angels, I don't know what God does, like probably commands the angels to bow before them, right?
Mhm.
And I wonder, if you kind of jailbreak that, if that kind of fits.
The way that Michael Sandler, who's like he was one of the big angel dudes that I was listening to while I was walking. He says that angels look at us like we're crazy for coming down here. They're like, "What the hell? You picked to be in a body? That's so weird." And that's like they're like fascinated with the disgustingness of being a human too. They're like, "What is even going on with that?" And then um, what they've also told me is they're like, why aren't you being in pleasure with your body? Like they're like, don't you know how beautiful you look when you're having an orgasm? You're like a rainbow, dude. Like do that more. That's beautiful. Which that was
Yeah,
not
that
something I was expecting from angels. Like the first thing they come through, like first angel, they're like, you should be having more sex. I'm like, what? Okay. This is not what I was expecting
yeah,
from
hell yeah.
angels, but I'm here for
Not gonna
it.
argue with that. Um that's interesting because yeah, I like that a lot. So that tracks too with some stuff they've said about like calling them into every experience that you can remember to do that for, like
Hmm.
pain, joy, pleasure, disgust, um, you know, just aggravation, resentment,
Hmm.
um, gratitude, just every like if you every time you are experiencing anything, which is all the time, if you
Yep.
can remember it, call us into that because um the way they put it was super weird. It is ours to transmute that into frozen fire, which
Hmm.
is, just kind of an example of their poetry too. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know what that means, but I dig it.
it's a good one to meditate on. Like so much of the stuff they say, and then you're like, oh, I get what that means now. I got it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I wonder too how much of like it's like drinking from a fire hose, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder how much is just going over my head too, because like they'll just every little thing that they'll do. So the process for me is like this. I picture the angel, or I just let myself see the angel. Whatever the angel
Hmm.
looks like. Sometimes it looks like the picture on the card. Sometimes
Hmm.
it immediately looks so like something completely different, right? And then like they'll start to do stuff, and then like I'll describe that, and then I'll know like when it's time to just start writing. So it is like there's an aspect of journeying to it and automatic writing, like
Hmm.
channeling, meditation, um, all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's how I experience them as well.
yeah,
That
so
same
you got
kind of
visuals
journey
too.
automatic writing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
cool. And like And so that's been a really good, like, and this might go back to what you were saying too about the act of listening to them helps you to like hone your psychic abilities, because doing all that at once, there's no way that doesn't hone your psychic abilities, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I did want to talk about the interesting kind of connection between angels and ancestors. We mentioned it briefly.
Mm-hmm.
What have you gleaned about that connection? And I will preface this by saying it is interesting to me that in many cultures there's the idea that you can become an angel, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
even if you just take the cartoon image of that, where like, like Wile E. Coyote or Tom, like, I don't know who it is, but they die and immediately like are playing a harp and floating into heaven.
Mm-hmm.
That's an archetype. Like, where?
Yeah. Well, I started thinking about that, especially when they said that they are the children of the mother and we're all the children of the mother. And I was kind of like, okay, so where do you guys end and ancestors start then? If we're all her children. And I think like a lot of these things, it's for our sake, the differentiation.
Yeah.
But like also, I mean, the like various levels of like well and unwell ancestor, I think, are a very real thing. And I can feel the difference when I'm communicating with them, but now I'm wondering how much of that has to do with being a body and how much of that has to do with it being something about the universe, because that's a tangent from the question.
No, but it's a good point. But yeah, continue if you would.
Because, well, yeah, I remember there was one point where in the walk where there wasn't really a difference, and it was kind of all of them were just together all at once, and it was like being able to call the universe the one is for the sake of just being able to have something to call it, but at all times it is many and one and just constantly going and moving at all times. So
yeah,
I think
like a swirling ocean.
yeah. Yeah. They would always show me like a partnered dance. It's just a dance that we're always doing with each other.
I like that a lot. Yeah, because you could be forgiven for taking a lot of what they say as like it's very zen.
Mm-hmm.
And almost and I don't know how much of that is just my right, like, and that's part of the experience, is that I am filtering these transmissions from celestial beings through my experiences in a body, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
when they speak to me and I tell you what they said, we just got mixed up together. Like we
Mm-hmm.
just became one. And then you hear that and it goes through you, and that's like that dance, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting, and that's like because they call us their or they, and when I, the things they say to me, they'll call us their children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also wonder, too, about the watchers, because I've had, okay, I'm again going on tangents, but like I've had dreams where the angels were like, and this is before this is while like I was ignoring them. Like
Mm-hmm.
where they were like, do magic with us, like let's do magic together, like we want to do rituals with you. And I was like, you want to do it with me? Like I thought I was supposed to do them to you. You know what I mean? Like, no,
Mm-hmm.
this is
Yeah.
like a partnership kind of thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like a lineage almost, right? Like, because how much have they, it's hard to say how much of this material experience is influenced by them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, all of it.
yeah.
Because if
So
they're if they're like all of the universe, then that we just get to talk to, then all of it.
Right. So it's all downstream in a way from them, which is what like where I'm kind of getting at, like as us being there, like we're their descendants in that
Yeah.
sense. Um,
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
but the idea of angelic mind is a question I've been enjoying asking them about. Because at first, it's funny when I started it, my first initial intention was, and I asked both of these questions because why not, right? Like I got you on the line. My initial intention was like, okay, I'm gonna do like find my highest good, how to manifest my highest good, right? And of course, these things are all like together anyway. But like the more and more, like I've been really enjoying asking them about angelic mind. What what is that to you? Like, what is your understanding at this moment at this time of angelic mind?
Um, I could feel like a rifling through my head trying to remember something that they've said to me because it always is so much more eloquent when they say it.
Of course.
But when I asked them about angelic mind, they started showing me hexagons everywhere. And they would have me just start out like draw a circle and then draw a line and draw a circle and like kind of connect them all together and have them kind of like branch out. And so angelic mind is the web that is woven between each of us as human beings and then every single being that's uh, like being in the universe. But they specifically would identify themselves as the relationship between the two things. So they're the spinning that's happening between the two nodes. They're the spaces in between. They're the relationality that's happening between people and trees, everything that's going on. So, and I've been in polyamorous relationships, and they use that as kind of like a model as well. They're just like the way that you're all connected together. And then they used rune soup as a model as well, kind of like the field that comes from like one super being connected to another super just by nature of being in rune soup. And this was something that they pushed on me like big time, was the ability to create a field just by praying for someone that is in a different location on the earth. Just our act of praying for them creates this like line of connection, this like golden line of connection that connects all of us all over the world. And if you do that enough, you get this whole big woven field around the earth of just like prayer and peace.
That's beautiful. I like that a lot. I that makes me think of mycelium too. Like the
Yeah. And there's a whole thing about mushroom spores coming from space. So, I mean,
yeah, totally. Right.
Where do mushrooms end and angels begin?
Anyway, but yeah, the spirals definitely get that. Like they like to look like they're spinning around and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they are. And to tell you that like we look the same actually, but like our energy body like looks like they look.
Yeah, they're like, we're the same thing. Both of us are many of one.
Yes. Oh my gosh, they do say that
Okay,
too.
yeah.
Okay, so now that I've picked your brain a little bit about angels, I know we did that for quite some time, but I really wanted to talk about that. I want to ask you, what were you afraid of as a kid?
Ooh. I was absolutely terrified of dying. Yeah. And I was thinking about this a little bit, and I think it was the like materialist metaphysics that I was afraid of not existing.
Yeah.
Like I would just get this like terror would just fill my body at the thought of just like bleeping out of existence. It didn't make sense to me. So a big part of my magical path, it began with like trying to figure out what the heck happens after we die. And that I there was a hesitancy around the comfort of the idea of a spirit world. because it felt so good and so right. And I had been so terrified of death for so long that it was like, I don't know if I could trust this wonderful, beautiful thing to be true. But yeah, so I was afraid of myself dying. I was afraid of other people dying, and I would just get into these like I would think my way into panic attacks because I would just kind of feel it unfold all the way back up behind me to like just not existing anymore, and I couldn't wrap my head around the concept of not existing, and so I would just fear would rush through my body.
It's interesting too because I wonder, and I'm only just thinking about this listening to you, but I have had that same experience, like when I spent my time in atheism, and it was just awful. Like I was just miserable. I wonder if that is a fear because it's not a natural state of being. Like not existing isn't a thing that you can do.
Yeah.
And so
that
like
makes a lot of sense.
Being told that that's going to happen to us is like it is anti like everything that we know to be true at some level about existence. It's also just, I don't know, it is terrifying. Like that was a big problem for me. And it coincided with like the worst years of my life in terms of health, mental well-being. It just I mean, I'm not like whatever, people can believe what they want, I really don't care, but it's interesting that those things should coincide for me.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, so what's your relationship with that now? With the idea of dying?
Now I'm like determined to become like a dope ancestor.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. I'm like, if I'm gonna die, like I'm gonna do it the right way. Now I'm in this part where I want to live a life worthy of dying, because I've had a couple of psychedelic experiences where I still have that fear of death pop up, but it's not so much a fear of the death process. It's a fear of, oh my gosh, I didn't do everything that I wanted to do. And this idea that I am trying to live with now is the idea that my entire life is my death. So if my entire life is lived well, then I will die a good death. And so I have this line that sometimes runs through my head. It's like, may I live a life worthy of my death, and may I die a death worthy of my life. That's kind of a prayer that I have now. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to do that? Just keep praying for it.
That's really good. That's really good. Yeah, the reason I like to ask this question is because I really like, and the more I ask it of people, the more it seems like what we're afraid of when we're kids is really important to the journey of our life. And the relationship that we take to those things are often like it becomes a power. Not always. It doesn't have to. And I can suffer a lot if I want to. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
And sometimes like I've been dead set on doing that before.
Yep.
You know,
no, damn it, I'm gonna suffer.
That's part of freedom, right? Is that we have the freedom to, like, if I want to, waste isn't a good word because I don't think anything is ever wasted, but if I want to make this experience, it is whatever I want it to be. It is whatever I want it to be, and so if it is a certain way, then on some level I want it to be that. And that's not to like blame the victim or anything. There is a chicken and the egg thing going on, right? Because time is not.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that comes with having it's a perspective shift, and it's one of those things that like you can hear it and you can feel like a sense of like agency rush through you and like a sense of power rush through you, or you can feel it and you can feel terrified by it and be like, no, I don't like that. But yeah, I get like my spirit team will roll their eyes at me sometimes and be like, you can make this as difficult as you want for yourself, my love. We'll be here when you'd like it to be easier.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially ancestors too, like
Yep.
that, because they just know. We've
Yeah.
been there. Um, yeah, okay. So what do you think death even is?
Oh, I don't know. Hmm. It's like it feels like it's almost one of the like joys of being a human, because when I sit down to think about it, like the whole like living a life worthy of death, then the whole dying process is just like ecstatic at that point. Like you get to just be in this ecstatic process of unbecoming and becoming something new. And so it's exciting and like a gift. And I think that since we forgot about that, it's like terrifying. But like I have this I've heard of, I was briefly introduced somewhere, I have no idea where, but this process of like tantric death doula, I think it would be a name for it, but it's like ecstatic tantric massage of a dying body to like get you in that state of like pleasure and fun, like have fun dying. That's so much of what has come through for like the walk and like everything. It's like just have fun, dude. Play the game. Like enjoy yourself with everything that you're doing as much as you can.
Play the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
I think
guess
because
an ecstatic unbecoming.
I like that. I
That's
like
what
that. It's a
death
good
is.
answer. I think, yeah, and I'm just following the thread of what you're saying too. Is it is birth,
Mm-hmm.
because if it is if you can't separate it from the process of living, then you also can't, like, it's all one thing. And obviously, like, you can phrase this however you want, and it would be hard to argue with the fact that, like, it is what we are here to do, because it's the one thing that we will all do. Like, we all will
Mm-hmm.
do it.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and I think there's a part, and I said this kind of, it just popped into my mouth in that one of the episodes with Sharif and Mo, but I've been thinking about it ever since. When I think of the Watchers, so we can go, we're going back to angels again, because it's hard not to. Um, had offspring with human women, which meant that they were fully aware that they wanted their descendants to experience death.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted that, like, because you would have to know that you're a Watcher, and so the gift is like, it being a gift. It is the envy of the universe,
Mm-hmm.
the gift of death.
Yeah. That's so metal. Fuck
Yeah,
yeah.
hell yeah. Because what? Okay, so what? Like, requirement to be a saint,
Mm-hmm.
you got to die.
Yep.
Requirement to be an ancestor, you
You
got to
gotta
die.
die. Yeah.
It is like this. It is it's initiation,
Mm-hmm. Oh
and
yeah, definitely.
yeah, and I can be initiated kicking and screaming, which I have been, or I can be initiated like, yeah, let's fucking do this, which I've also been.
Yeah. Like
Like,
a full surrender. And it feels
right.
really like I think that any kind of like surrendering um meditation or like is surrendering to like a dance practice or any kind of like I I this just is coming through. It's like it's a total surrender to your body,
Mm,
because you can't fight your body on the way out of death. Like it's gonna die either way, and you can either surrender to it or you can go with it and
yeah.
flow with it. Because it's a body thing. Like dying is a body thing that's happening.
Right.
That's interesting. So like, yeah, any kind of body-based practice would definitely could be seen as like a death practice, like a surrendering to your body.
Oh wow, I really like that.
Yeah, that just clicked something for me too. So I like that when it's like, I don't even know what's going to come out of my mouth.
Oh
We're
yeah,
both experiencing this at the same time.
it's the best actually. It's actually when I say the best stuff. If I think about it too much, I
Hmm.
just end up being like "Bleh, bleh, that.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because you got me thinking about death meditation, but then we just jumped that completely. Because like, and that if you know, in that case, every meditation is the
A
act of
death
like
meditation.
dying before you
Yeah.
die.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm gonna have to think about that a lot.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit with that one. Um, and you have from what we've talked about before in the past, you have a regular embodied like movement practice.
I I do. I have been getting back into that because I fell off of it for a while, and surprise, surprise, body got pretty sick, and so
Right.
got to get back into it. Yeah, I had a fixed star reading with Amaya Rourke the other day, and that was like a big thing. And I was even sitting there, I'm like, I'm happy to do this work like with my ancestors and the stars. I just want them to tell me what to do. She's like, they are telling you what to do. They told you you need to go dance more, dude. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right.
That's good.
So yes, I do. I do now. I'm going to say that I am someone who has a regular embodied practice. Now I'll actually do it. I'll keep doing it.
So when that's really when you're really in the zone with that, when you're like tranced out,
Hmm.
can you describe your experience there at all? Share that some.
um, yeah. Uh, what I've experienced is actually a lot of what I experience is said significantly more eloquently by Alkistis Demek. She has a lot of writing on dance that just it makes my body hum when I hear her talk about it or when I read her stuff. Um, but it's like a total like openness. Like my entire body feels extremely open and allowing what is all around me already to flow through me while at the same time bearing witness to the way that what's around me is moving my body. And it feels, I mean, it feels really good. It feels really nice to just like be. It's just like the total state of just being without having to think. And I have started recently practicing Qigong, and I found that that has helped a lot with my ecstatic dance practice because there's this the way that my qigong teacher is explaining it, he's like, you let your hands float up and away from your body, and when you bring your hands together, you're kind of squeezing energy in between your hands, and then as you move them down, you're allowing the energy to push it away, so that it's a practice of surrender. And the more surrendering happens, the more stuff flows through, and then it's just witnessing whatever is happening in my body, and it's kind of fun at that point.
Very nice. Yeah, I had an agenda when I asked that question because I'm really interested in that moment of ecstasy because, like you said, the thoughts, like I'm not thinking, it's just flowing.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that's the best way for me, at least in my experience, to journey or to,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of things can do it, because I can do it through a prayer, but there's something
Mm-hmm.
about like just that almost frenzy you get into, and this might be an Odin thing, right? Like being whipped into that frenzy,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the stuff will just start coming, and I can just close my eyes, and I'll just it gets me there, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've been enjoying that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I do it with running, and I fell off running, and that has been fun getting back into. Not.
Oh God, and that feels like something that's baked into the universe as well, because there's so many of the ideas of like the sky and the earth separate from each other because it's so much fun to come back together, and like we separate from our lovers, and then when we come back together, like that part is so fun. It's so fun to be apart from each other and be like longing and waiting, and in the moment that you're together again, you're like, this is great. So there's something about leaving and coming back to practices that I think is just baked in.
I will be one of those people that will say there is no coming back without leaving.
Mm-hmm.
It's all gratitude. Like, so when I'm feeling, when I can't see, I'll have those days where I just can't see the forest for the trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting like sucked into every thought I'm having, and I'm getting sucked into every drama that's happening in my life, and I'm getting, like those times when you're meditating and you didn't even remember to breathe the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole day can be like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I come home and I remember who I am and I remember like what this is, it's just like you're describing. It's what it's all about. And I was actually being sarcastic when I was talking about running, but I'm glad you said that because it gets me to talk about this. It's been brutal, but I do get the endorphins that like, it's almost like, I don't know why I was going to compare it to smoking. Like when you actually get a buzz from a cigarette because you haven't had a cigarette in so long.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah. Oh.
It's like that, but I've been separated from that. So
Yeah. Oh, I keep thinking about them though.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
stop. I want to stop thinking about cigarettes now, please. Thank you, God. Yeah, I stopped smoking weed earlier this year. I haven't.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things too. I didn't drink for like a whole year, and then picked it back up a little bit, and then stopped drinking again. And it kind of coincided with stopping my ecstatic practice, and like everything kind of starts to pile up on top of each other. But
definitely.
And I actually went through I was in a coffee shop journaling the other day, and I was kind of having a conversation with my team, like in my journal. And I was like, why do I keep still wanting to like fall into just like smoking and drinking and smoking weed and like doing coke and like all of this stuff? Like, just why do I still want this? And they're like, okay, let's do a thought experiment. Like, what happens if you sink all the way into it? Like, what do you get from it? And I'm like, surrender. And they're like, what do you get from your ecstatic practice? I'm like, surrender. Damn it. Like, you guys are. And they're like, what happens when you're like in the midst of substances? And I'm like, well, I feel my heart and my soul up in my head, and I am constantly trying to get it back down into my belly. And they're like, well, it's in your belly when you're dancing anyways. So like, I'm like, I have this idea that I think that the deeper that I go with like drinking or drugs or like that kind of surrender, that it will land me in the same place, and it doesn't. It never does. I know it doesn't. Right. Why would I do it again?
Well, I think there's an interesting thing because it does kind of do that, but it doesn't it's not lasting.
Yeah, it doesn't stick around in the same way.
Like, because all the things I do now just do what what meth or heroin did.
Mm-hmm.
They just do those same things, but it's over a long period of time, and it's obviously not as intense, right? But it allows it, for me, is it's power.
Mm-hmm.
It's access to power. Yeah. Because I needed, like, the reason I did those things was just because I needed, and we don't all do the drugs for the same reasons, obviously, but
yeah,
I can only speak from my experience. I needed the power to be comfortable in my own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And those things did that really well until I couldn't like leave my room or my bed.
Mm-hmm.
Like I became so afraid to leave the room. Um, and you know, that moment of surrender when I said like I got nothing, like I like help me. It
Mm-hmm.
all came rushing in. Um, all the help came rushing in. So in a way, yeah, it does lead to that. And I'm grateful that like I kind of went 100%.
Yeah.
As
Yeah,
crazy as that
because
might sound, because it almost killed
you
me,
can
right?
kind
But
of
like,
flirt with it a little bit, but going that whole 100%, they're like, all right, here we go. We're gonna pull you up out of this now because you
yeah.
went all the way down there.
And you know, I know people that that didn't happen with, and so it's just total gratitude. But like,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, it is, so it's access to power for me, and like, but these the techniques that I've been learning over the past few years, just do it. Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
don't have any need because I, it's just a moot point. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And at that point, I mean, it's a different kind of access to power because if you can do it with your body, you always have your body with you.
yes. And you know what is interesting is that what the drugs do, that is in your body. Like
Yeah.
your body is doing that. It is not the
Mm-hmm.
drug doing that. You
Mm-hmm.
are always able to do that. Like that potentiality exists in you.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where it's like you just have to let yourself do it. And it,
Yeah. And
which
so,
is so easy for an
well,
angel to say, but like, come on, man.
right. Like I'm sure there's people that have reached levels of enlightenment where they can just bliss out like that. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And like,
Yeah.
you know, I also like choose to live a life, you
Yeah.
know? So like I could
Mm-hmm.
go like and spend my whole life in meditation and maybe try to
Mm-hmm.
get to that, but like I'm like I'm not going to do
Yeah.
that. Like
Yeah. That's one of the things that's one of the things that is enticing to me about healing is being able to be in that state with another person and getting to like then be in a state of gratitude for being able to be in this kind of like blissful state and having it bring healing into the world and getting to like witness that. That's a big part of um the like why of my ecstatic practice too, is because the more you open, the more you surrender, the more you let stuff come through, the more healing energy that can come through you
and
too.
the more
So
like there really is something about adding people to the
mm-hmm.
like, and I don't know if it's a quantity thing, but even just one person, like
Well, it's probably the angelic mind thing.
well, yeah, and I
Then you
think
get
it's
the
like
relationship showing up.
whatever the Holy Spirit is, it's that too, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
which oh yeah, there's probably a connection there. But so for an example, like when we, and I'll, you know, hopefully not busting out anyone's spot, but I think it's cool. Probably. When we did that, and we did an intention at Wizard Camp,
Mm-hmm.
and we've done like a lot of intentions,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd only ever done them on Zoom, which is cool for its own thing. Like, and it, like, especially the distance, like weaving that web of that field.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, there's something there for sure. Because I get a lot of that imagery too of everyone like having beams of light between them and stuff. But
Yep.
there was something about it in person that blew my fucking socks off. Like
Mm-hmm.
all I could do was cry. All I could do was cry because it was just like I was overwhelmed with power. It's that same feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um and I get idiomotor tears when I know like I'm really talking to, well, I don't know. It's less now because I think I realize that it's happening all the time. But like sometimes when I'm getting a really clear communication, just tears will come, and it's not even like I'm not even
Hmm.
crying. I'm just like tears.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting.
Um, yeah, and it's one way to for me to really know, like, okay, this is a big deal. Like, pay attention to this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, but so that was like that. And then I'll give another example real quick. When I hung out with Kurt, meeting him for the first time, like maybe a couple months ago, and we went to some effigy sites down here,
Yeah.
and we went and elevated a graveyard, a pretty old graveyard, just kind of in the woods. But it was a cool adventure just finding it, right? But I had done a lot of graveyard elevations and praying in graveyards before, but adding just one person to that was like a supercharge.
Yeah.
So just going back to what you're saying, I can't remember exactly what you said that made me think about that, but you're talking about healing. Oh yeah, and with another person. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an interesting, it's the relationality thing again. Like you can't really, it must be something interesting about two bodies specifically being together as well is something, and I don't know what it is about that would be different, because I've done intentions where it's like me calling in my ancestors and calling in my allies, so there is more than one being doing the intention, even though it's just one body doing the intention.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that it has something to do with bodies, at least in our instance. Like I wonder what would happen if I asked the tree outside of my window to intend with me the next time I did that, and if it would feel the same way as having two bodies intending, or two or more bodies intending.
I think it would probably be its own cool thing. Like that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, I've had angels to like tell me to call them into intentions too.
Oh yeah.
And that definitely,
I just kind of leave that door open at this point.
Always. Yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, because okay, I don't know that it is different, but it feels different because
well, that's probably the thing that's so interesting to beings without bodies, is that difference. Because it feels different. Like when you touch another body, there's something that happens that doesn't happen when it's just you and your body.
Right. Exactly. Like you can't tickle yourself. Like I mean, maybe you can. I don't know.
You can try. It's pretty fun to try.
Yeah, it is definitely. Well, yeah, and I think there's a feeling of touching a spirit that is definitely a feeling, but it's not the same feeling. And that it's not any more or less real, but it definitely is something like I've just noticed it in a lot of like, especially these past couple of years, and going through a lot of time of just not having a lot of like physical, like not having a lot of like physical presence and ceremony. It is like made it so clear to me coming back to that, like, oh yeah, this is like something that is very important. Well, I mean,
yeah, that's what we lived for so long. Like, I don't think that what you're saying is like it's not something that would like shock any human to sit down and think with. Like, it does feel really good to be in the same space.
Well, because I'm not trying to knock, like, it's cool that we're able to have this conversation right now,
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
But
I think we could be grateful for this thing and want something else.
But dude,
like, at all times,
it would be even cooler if you were in this band. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, it's not surprising to I think my ancestors are probably laughing at me right now.
Yeah, I could feel it from my altar. They're like, duh, dude.
But I think that's also part of the because there's a lot that we've talked about that, and this is when in the part of the show where I start to think, what's doing this? Okay, disconnection from our bodies, which can't even really be done unless I am led to believe that is possible. Right? Like I have to like I'm co-creating reality, like I'm a reality engine. And so okay, this is where I say, people that are like, we live in a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a simulation, because if I can be made to believe that I'm in a simulation, I'm effectively like having the experience of being in one, and therefore,
Mm-hmm.
like, so like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, like,
Yeah, yeah, it's the story. Whatever story that you tell yourself is the story that's going on
right. And so
around
if
you.
I'm being told that I'm disconnected from everything, then I am disconnected from everything. Like, or
Yeah.
if I am able to, if I fall into that, because I am being
Mm-hmm.
told that all the time. Now I just say, no, that's not the case.
Yeah, it's like, nope.
Yeah, I'm not. Like, our condoms, man.
Yeah.
These archons want to interpose themselves between everything. And what is an archon?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't.
that's what that gets me sometimes because like um one of the angels that I talked to, he was saying he's talking about how the archons came from or the like the demiurge comes from Sophia who uh fell from the all up there and
Yeah.
it's like, but what's above that? And they're like,
Mm.
what's above the archons? What did the archons come from? And they're like, just remember that and sit with it. And they're like, but also, you're on Earth. The archons are real. You do have to live there. So like
Yeah.
hold both of those truths. But I continue to have the I come back to the entirety of the universe, which includes the archons, is playing with itself. It's just trying to experience everything. And from our perspective, like, there's some fucked up shit going on. Like, why the fuck is that? But it's part of the game that the universe is playing with
It's
itself. And it was really weird to get into the mindset of some of the people that I would consider to be archonic. And then I kind of sat with it. I'm like, what if they are doing the greatest good that they know how to do from their hearts? And to us, it just looks really fucked up. But from them, this is how they love. And I'm like
mm,
that. It like it creates so much dissonance in my body to sit with it. But it was like it felt like a good thing to sit with.
yeah. I like
Um,
to try to offer meta to the archons. That's a really interesting thing to do too.
well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. You were about to say something. I think I interrupted you.
No, it's a one of the things that helped me think with this was the idea of like we come to Earth as like Earth school, and everyone comes down here to like learn or like you get to play a game. And the game that you want to play requires there to be different characters in it. Like in order to have the experience of healing, first we need to be sick. And in order to have the experience of like battling the archons, there need to be archons. And like in order for the world to shift the way that it needs to, there needs to be something that starts the shift, which could be like people getting pissed off enough that they're going to do something about it. But in order for them to be pissed off, they need to have someone or something to be pissed off at. And it was this weird moment of like giving gratitude to the overlords for coming to Earth to be these people that everyone is just fucking pissed at.
Very
Which
well
is
put.
hard
Yeah,
hard
it's
to do though.
difficult.
I'm still pissed at them.
Yeah. I like what you said a lot. I like that you're on that Gnostic shit too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's a line in the Holy Book of the Great Invisible Spirit, also known as the Gospel of the Egyptians, um, that says that the powers of this earth are destined to be reconciled, which
Mm-hmm.
is interesting from like destined to be thrown into the lake of fire, right? Like they're destined to be reconciled.
Mm-hmm.
And what if that's how they become reconciled? Is by acting out what they're acting out. Just like a disease is an expression of an impurity or something, a falling out of balance, and the disease is the expression of that leaving the world or leaving the body. And that's been really helpful for me to think with, that the Archons are an expression of something that has to leave the world, and that's just what that looks like.
Yeah.
Or that has to go away, like there seems to be something about destruction in this realm, in this experience, in this place.
Yeah.
That is, well, you talk about death and birth.
Yeah.
Destruction and creation. It seems to be a feature.
Yeah, definitely a feature. Well, I mean, you need this is making me think of like you need to lose something in order for the space to open up for something new to come in. Like there must be destruction of a thing in order for new stuff to come in. Yeah, I think it's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
Everything that's going on. Like you even see it, I mean, like decomposing. The stuff decomposes for new stuff to come back out of the earth.
Right. And for that energy to be transmuted, maybe it's a mercy, I try to, and I like what you said, because I think that act of looking at something from a different perspective, well, for one thing, I know it changed my life completely, right? Like stepping from self-pity to gratitude is like the most transformative thing that's ever happened to me.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And I am not like, I definitely have to give credit where credit is due to Spirit for that. Like, wouldn't have come up with that on my own, I don't think. Well, I hadn't so far,
Yeah.
I was just going to keep doing what I was doing. Yeah. So this world, Philip K. Dick called it the Black Iron Prison. And it can be that.
Yeah, definitely.
But I have to see it that way. Like I have to make it that. And so the Archons, I think, like one of the ways to really, like, because you can't fight them, because if you like directly, because if you fight them directly, you become an Archon.
Yeah.
So like if it's just I'm on the Philip K. Dick train of thought, right? If I defeat the Empire, I become the Empire. Like to fight the Empire is to become deranged with its madness. And so we have to come up with these cunning ways to do it. And I think that's one of them, is disarming them with gratitude, because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's building a heart for Ahriman, as that conversation between Conor Habib and Gordon White was like really been great to think with. Is like, I know it's almost a cliche, right? But it's like sticking that flower in the gun.
Yeah.
And so like I choose not to be in the Black Iron Prison. I choose to be in the Palm Tree Garden. And that's where I am,
Yeah.
But it's all my perspective. Because they're the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, choosing to live joyfully and pleasurably in exactly where you are, like right now, and just like making the choice to do it is, yeah, I mean that is the way that I have found to work. And if I'm not doing it, then I fall back in, and when I start doing it again, I come back up. So it seems to be the thing that works. It definitely fits with chaos magic rules. Like, it works, so keep doing it.
Well, and there's an awareness piece to it, right? Because, and this is another thing that the angels like to say or tell me, is that they've been stressing a lot to me the power that exists in the moment, in this moment. And that's like all the power is in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's where we are, and that's where they are. And
Mm-hmm.
the endless now, whatever you want to call it, like that. But I have to have awareness to be in that, because the moment I start to like lose a sense of awareness, I go other places.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. But yeah, they seem to be stressing to me the power that exists like right where I am at the time I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's for my benefit, right? Because there's no time. Like, but or it's like it's not linear, at least. That I think is like a C.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, I see it like geographically, time geographically. So the place that you're in, that makes more sense to me.
Nice.
That was a Gordon thing. He said that, and I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm like, I'm just gonna start walking around time now. That makes tons of sense to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Wow. That kind of blew my mind a little bit. He's good about that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Like having the awareness of the moment that you're in right now. So that is the thing that's required in order for you to make the choice.
Right.
And the choice is the thing that leads to your experience of the world, like choosing to be in a world filled with joy. It comes from the choice. You have to make the choice to do it. And if you don't have the awareness, no choice.
And I constantly have to come back to it. And I think that's a part of like them when they say like, remember to call us in. It's that.
Yeah, because they help with that. When you leave the door open for them to come back through and remind you that you are in a world of joy, they help with the remembering, but they can't help you unless you ask. So then you have to remember to ask, which is why for a lot of my daily prayers, I started saying, let there be no limit to how you may help me for my highest good. I just open the doors. I'm like, you are invited to the day. Please help. I gladly accept it.
It's a wonderful way to start the day.
Because it's just following angels. I do it with ancestors too, because it makes sense to also ask for the ancestors to just help. Please, thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I do as well. And calling specific types of ancestors is something that I learned from Reverend Janglebone's ancestor course.
Yeah.
It's been one of the most indispensable things I've learned, I think.
Yeah, that totally transformed my practice this year. That was good stuff. Good stuff came out of that course.
Yeah, it's really good. I recommend it to anybody. And like you can get so creative with that, right? Which makes me think maybe I should do that with angels too. Can I do that with specific types of angels too?
Oh yeah, 100%. That's Sonia Choquette is she's the author of this book called Trust Your Vibes, and which was, I think, one of the first magic books that I started reading. And her whole thing is that you pray to all of the different kinds of angels. Like you call on the angels of like booking airline tickets to get you the best deal on an airline ticket, or like the angels of gardening to help you with gardening. And that started to click some stuff in for me with like sitting and wondering like, well, how did human beings learn how to do this if we didn't have like science or something? Like we asked and then we're told how to do it through our bodies, and then we did it.
Yeah. I think they told us all this. I mean, which is interesting because I do wonder too about like the darker side of some angels, right? Like those
Mm-hmm.
angels of empire.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one of those things where that's maybe just my limited vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like beings that are engaged in affairs that I have no idea about, right? Like that I
Yeah.
couldn't comprehend.
Well, that comes back to the whole idea of they're a necessary part of the game, and they have to have
Yeah.
what looks to us like a neutral morality in order to be part of the universe that is playing this game that includes Archons and Empire for reasons that I don't understand, but
Yeah.
it's part of the game that's getting played. Like so much of what I like doing, like wanting to become like working with healing, like so much of this wouldn't happen if there weren't people that were sick from Empire. Like
Mm. Yeah.
it's necessary, which is weird to sit with, being like it's necessary to have angels of Empire, but yeah, I can't pretend to understand what's going on. I just try to make peace with it.
Yeah. And accept it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I sometimes wonder about being conditioned not to surrender
Mm-hmm.
because it seems to me that surrender is actually a gateway through which I am able to move more freely in the world.
You're like surrendering to the path that opens before you. When the angels explained
Right.
it to me, they brought to mind how much fun it is to put together. I don't know if you've ever put together like one of those like big Lego things, like the Death Star, the Millennium Falcon, like one of those big ones where like you got to
Yeah.
sit down with like the instruction booklet and put the pieces together. That's really fun. You're following an instruction booklet. It's
Mm.
leading you down this path, and at the end of it, you have this wonderful thing that you've created. And it was from following instructions, but it's not like giving your power away to the Lego booklet. It's just picking up breadcrumbs and putting the things together as they come up.
This is really good. I'm going to have to do some of that calling the specific angels because I do it with the ancestors and it's great.
Oh, one of the fun ones to do is angels
Oh,
parking
yeah.
spots.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great for me
that
because
was
that's like,
that started a feedback loop for me when it works and you're like, oh, okay, I guess there's something to this. Yep, angels of parking
and
spots, and
it's a good one
it
because it
turns into
seems
like a
mundane, but it's,
game.
okay. And I do that. Like I park pretty much all day. Like that's what I do for a living
Mm-hmm.
is park. And so, right. Because I deliver food. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's my day job.
My day job is parking.
It's parking. Well, like half of it's driving and half of it's parking.
Yeah.
Um, but that's cool because I actually had an experience where I was having a really like just slow night and I needed money
Mm-hmm.
and I was just getting bummed and like no like I'd had to well, I didn't have to, but I chose to like drop a couple orders because I had waited at the restaurants for so long and it was just like it's a waste of my time. Like and then I'm like, well, should I have done that? And I'm in my head. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just having one of those days. It's just a day at work.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
can happen in any manner of ways. But so I'm driving and I'm like, all right, Angels, I need to make a little bit of money tonight. I didn't even need to make that much. It was already late.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, can you please help me to get like just a good order to cap off the
Mm-hmm.
night to hit my goal? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I got one that was like on the face of it just really good, but it was going to the same place that had just had a really long wait. Like they were just super busy, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm accepting it. But I had to think about it, right? And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
so I take it. And I go and they're really busy. But there's a woman walking up at the same time as me, and we just kind of like say hey and just kind of casually chatting, right? And she's like, we're both kind of standing there, and she's waiting for food too. I don't know if she was doing the same thing I was doing, or if she was just had takeout food. But she goes in and asks. She basically like just barged in and was like, "Hey, where's the shit?" And which is something that I don't really do. I just kind of like wait.
Mm-hmm.
But I could have waited there for 45 minutes if she hadn't have gone in there and been like, "Hey, where's the shit?" And then what they brought out was, oh, and then when they came out, she was like, "He was first." And they bring me the orders, and I'm gone
Mm-hmm.
in like 2 minutes. Whereas
Yeah.
I could have been standing there for 45 minutes, becoming further demoralized, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking away, and I'm like, "Oh shit, thanks, y'all."
Yeah.
Like you sent this person that didn't even probably know they were doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which brings me to another good idea that isn't one of mine, but it came to me, is that the more I pray and the more that I'm plugged into that source of power, whatever it is, if I'm a channel, like I love the prayer
Mm-hmm.
of St. Francis for this because it's like
Mm-hmm.
make me an instrument of your peace. Then I'm able probably to be that for people in ways that I don't even know is happening, like she was for me,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like I think listening to those intuitions and following them, I might not even understand the purpose for it on that level that the angels are able to see, where it's like fitting into all these places, like all these things
Mm-hmm.
are hooking up. It's just something that it's good to remember.
Yeah, definitely. The joy of being part of the tapestry. Just like, do this thing. It's like, okay, I just work here.
Yeah, so tell me about your Twitch stream.
Oh, I've started streaming on Twitch. My username is Planet Destroyer 54. So it's at twitch.tv/Planet Destroyer 54. Um, I am doing geomancy and playing cards and oracle readings for people. The the way that I started streaming on Twitch, my dad came up to visit me, and we were sitting in a coffee shop, and I did a card reading for him. And he asked me if I thought that I could do this like for other people. And I like hesitantly, I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not like a professional, but I could definitely practice it. And he has been nerding out on like Flight Simulator and Twitch streamers who play Flight Simulator also. So he has like all of this Twitch knowledge that I didn't have. He's like, do you think that you could stream it on Twitch? And this idea just started like it just took off and just started spinning its wheels like between us. It felt very much like ancestors and angels being like, here you go, do this thing, just follow
Yeah.
the breadcrumbs. And I got so we left there and went to the card shop so that I wanted to get an oracle deck that had uh more like mundane messages in it, because the only one that I have right now is the Shaman's Dream Oracle. And I'm like, not everyone that comes to me on Twitch is going to be like, what is my spirit quest? Uh, so I asked the dude that owns the shop which Oracle deck he thought would be the best for that. He's like, I don't know. He's like, we're like a spiritual shop. Like, aren't you on a spiritual path? I'm like, I am, but the people I'm reading cards for might not be. So he pulls up this tree deck. It's just got, yeah, I can show you like the tree transformation cards. He's like, maybe this one, but I usually like to let the decks like answer the question. And so he pulls the cards out and he kind of spreads them out and he has me pick one and I pull it and it's the maple tree, and on it it says like, if you're starting a new business endeavor, maple is a sign to go ahead and do the thing. Maple is very much grounded in the earth and not so much concerned with the esoteric nature of things. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I'm like, that's exactly what I wanted. My dad sitting there like having the same, he's like, oh my God, did that card really just say that? I'm like, yes, this is how my life goes. Welcome.
Yeah,
Welcome
good
to what
stuff.
synchronicity looks like. So yeah, it was very cool. And it was fun. I feel like it's bringing my relationship with my dad to a place that it hasn't been in before, because we had like a falling out when I was younger. So this very much feels like a coming back together, which tastes like ancestors.
Absolutely. And really good to hear too. I'm always glad to hear about that. Cool. So when can people tune into that? When are you streaming?
I have my schedule up on that at that link, and sometimes it changes from week to week, but cool. I like the 5 to 7 Pacific time most. So
I like Twitch because I always only ever knew it as a like streaming for games and stuff. But like my favorite thing I found was this guy called Therapy Gecko, and he just dresses like a gecko and does call in. People just call in and ask questions.
Oh, that's
great.
He
just like talks to them about their questions. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like public access. This is like our like public access for our time, you know? And call in stuff. I love call in stuff. So that's just, I was excited to hear you were doing that. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any other like any other things you want to tell people about?
I am eventually launching a Substack with some of the angel writings. They keep pushing me to do that, but that is not going to happen until after Mercury retrograde is over. So
yeah, good call.
Yeah. Other than that, eventually one day I will be a somatic sex educator. So that will be a thing not very far in the future, but at some point in the future that I can be talked to about. Even now, I can be talked to about that. Come ask me your sex questions.
Hell yeah. Very cool. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, this was great.
I had a great time. And hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yes, you too.
Do you experience weird shit? Do your parents not like to tell their friends about what you do in the woods? Do you make more friends in a graveyard than you do at a party populated by living humans? Do you have interactions with beings that are not strictly considered human? Do other people look at you like you're crazy when you mention talking to trees in casual conversation? If you fist pumped or even just answered yes to any of these questions, you may be a nightbird. So let's sing together. If you'd like to come on the show and flap your gums with me, share your stories, or just talk about the malleable nature of reality for a while, then send me an email at tim@nightbirdpodcast.com. That's tim@nightbirdpodcast.com. I'd love to have you on the show. But until then, I gotta fly. But before I go, let me say this. Remember, you are never alone. I believe you.